Hey, everybody, welcome to Coffee with Joe for November 16th, 2009. Joe, I was watching a Peter Schiff video over the weekend. Maybe we can link to it down in the corner. And in the end of it, he was saying, all fiat money systems are going to crash. They always have. He said, as proof, not worth a Continental. Everybody knows the Continental currency crashed. Joe, this new greenback idea that the American Monetary Institute's been putting forward and that we promote on our website is a fiat money system, is it not?
Certainly. I think even if you look at what Peter Schiff really says, when he's referring to the fiat money system, Pete, he's referring to the present fractional reserve debt money system that we have at this time, and it is doomed to fail, and it's doomed to fail not because of its fiat nature, but it's doomed to fail because it creates all money as debt, and there's no mechanisms for basically chewing up money in the economy. We have too much debt out there. So I guess the biggest difference when it comes to fiat money, even the term fiat money, Pete, is misleading and misused. It's kind of been grabbed by the Austrians as the boogeyman. It's almost the equivalent of government, but it also describes, systems that have nothing to do with whether they're fiat or not fiat. Okay, basically, as long as to me, this is my view of it, and I read the monetary historians. A real fiat money system just means that the value of the money is established by government fiat. Okay, we happen to be living with what I consider to be an illegal fiat money system because why? We have basically Federal Reserve notes that circulate as our currency, right? So it's a private, not a government note, okay? And it's in private Federal Reserve Bank control, not government, okay? The government doesn't either control monetary policy or the currency, okay? So even is ours a fiat money system now? Not really. That's what I would say about that, Pete.
Well, in the sense that the Federal Reserve, Congress gave that right by law to the private bankers.
Yeah, and you could say that that was legally done. That's a government right that has taken place through legal means. And when I say legal means, I mean they went through a statutory creation of the power of the private banks to create the money. So they went through a legal means. But of course, I'm of the opinion that it was not legal. That is to say that the Congress taking the power that's been granted to them and to pass it along to a private entity to take the benefit of it is an illegal transfer of that power. But that's not our issue. Okay, the fact that it was illegal, you go to court, have it found illegal, but you don't have to do that. You can just amend the Fed Act and get back the powers that we want, which is to have a true fiat money system, a true government-controlled and issued fiat money system. By virtue of doing that, all of the, quote, central banking functions, which would be very much limited, by the way, which would be very much limited, but which would be limited to acting on behalf of the nation as a banker, okay, would make it a true fiat currency. So we would have a currency that was not only created and controlled directly by the government, okay, but all of its values, and there when we talk about, remember that other provision in the Constitution, Pete, is to regulate the value thereof. What does that mean? That means both internally, okay, there's fiat right there, and externally. Externally is, what's our money worth in relation to everything else. So the government would be representing the people's money system in their dealings with foreign nations. So right there, I've kind of tried to lay out what we're proposing as a true government fiat money system. Yes, Pete, it's just like the greenbacks. And that is what we're proposing to do, is to get back to the greenbacks. So now I have to differentiate that, from, we have to be able to differentiate that from the money system we have now. Some people call it a conspiracy between the government and the bank and the private bankers. The Austrians love to paint the government as the equal partners, with them in creating the fiat money system, this fiat money system. But this is a debt money system. This is a money system that's where all the money is created as a debt. We don't propose to do that. We propose to create all the money as real money. Okay, so we have that difference, and then they try to differentiate between fiat and non-fiat money by saying that it has to have its value tied to some form of a commodity, of all things, a commodity. And they try, this is interesting, Pete, because their first anchor, their first port of call is gold, well, it has to be tied to gold, And by the way, there are a whole bunch of them that say, no, gold is too able to be manipulated by the people that control the gold. It should be silver. Silver is more democratic than gold. And then you have the bimetallists, and then you have the others who say, no, we should resort completely to free banking. And that was really where the concept of free banking to me is like the banks create the money by creating their own money. Okay. And it's not what we would call US dollar denominated, even though they would have to denominate it in a dollar in order to trade it in the world. They would have to denominate it, but it wouldn't be dollar denominated because it would be banknote denominated, really. It's like however much they say it is relative to however much some other bank with some other form of commodity currency says their money is worth. So to me, I'm sorry, Pete, to say it, but that's what I consider to be the insanity of the Austrians and the libertarians, to think that we're going to move from the money system, everything that's wrong with the money system that we have today. And remember, it's not just fractional reserve banking, Pete. Remember that the bulk of the money in the last 15 years has been created by the shadow banking industry. To me, the shadow banking industry is very much akin to free banking, Pete, okay? Because they're unregulated. They have no real standards. Yeah, sure, the Securities and Exchange Commission, but what are they? Securities, It's like, well, we want a money system. Okay, we don't want to have a commodity that gets traded as money. We want to have a money system that's rooted in the reality of our economy, Pete.
Joe, did we have free banking in this country before the Federal Reserve Act? Even
free banking, Pete, is not something that's universally accepted in terms of its definition as to what it is. Okay, but the period, in the period before the National Banking Act, which was one of Lincoln's, emergency kind of measures, which just established a national system of banking, so that we could have a system which was really states. That was really like, okay, we're going to have a system of state banks. There was some free banking to that. Why? Because banks were not prevented from creating their own money. And in essence, that's what free banking is really all about. Again, in essence. So there are those that don't even want to have a national system of free banking. Okay? No, we're going to have that national system. We're going to have regulation. We're going to have... So it's time for the Austrians, to really come out here and have a discussion about why, a move to any kind of a form away from what we have now to whatever it is they're proposing really does make sense. And I can't do that, because I've got my own bias in favor of my own vision of what the money system should be like, and it's not that.
Joe, we didn't get to the continental currency and the wheelbarrows of cash from the Weimar Republic. Let's do that in part 2. So
okay.
Go to part 2.